Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Brunswick, Maine. I'm Charlie Evans, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. And quite honestly, I miss singing in the choir. But we really appreciate the Caswell family and Ambrosio's contributions in standing in for us so ably. As we continue social distancing, it's heartening that we are working for the common good of our neighbors, families, and friends by remaining distanced from one another. It's at times like this that our church community is more important than ever. One of the many challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic is our need to maintain the financial health of UUCB while not meeting in person. Under the normal circumstances, one mechanism we count on is the collection of cash in the plate during Sunday services. This is also the way we support our charities with Soul. Each week, we share half the plate donations with that month's chosen charity with Soul. While we are not meeting in person, the need continues for us and the charities. We've established a way for members and friends to donate online with the capability of making a plate donation online. It's still possible to contribute by mailing a check with plate on the memo line to UUCB, but you can also do this now online by going to uubrunswick.org and then clicking on Donate Online and filling out the simple form. Finally, about pledging. You can also make a pledge online in exactly the same way we've been doing since the pledge campaign began. For those who have automatic withdrawal set up already, it's best if you keep that as it is into the next church year, since there is no fee service. It's a no-fee service offered by the Atlantic Federal Credit Union. Please take advantage of these ways to maintain a supportive connection while we must keep our physical distance. And now for today's service. On Sundays, when Reverend Stocker is on a sabbatical, and she'll be back on May 5th, the worship committee finds substitute speakers to conduct our services. Today, that person is Sara Hayman from the Unitarian Universalist Church in Ellsworth. Sara grew up in Maine and discovered Unitarian Universalism as a teenager at the First Universalist Church of Auburn. Before becoming a parish minister, she served as a hospice chaplain in Hancock County. She's a Meadville Lombard graduate and lives in Bucksport. We are grateful to Sara for being with us today. The title of her sermon today is, quote, "Walk Sightless Among Miracles," unquote. Once again, welcome and be safe. Lovings.
Thank you, Charlie Evans, for your warm welcome. And good morning and welcome to all of you, the members, friends, first-time or long-time visitors of our Brunswick Unitarian Universalist Church. I am glad to be here with you, though in truth, I have to admit I was really looking forward to meeting you in person and leading worship while standing in your beautiful sanctuary. This is a strange time that we're living in. It was October of this past year, Sunday, October 20th, that I was present at your church in Brunswick to celebrate the ordination of my colleague, the Reverend Claire Currall. And it was a joyful and auspicious event, and you were gracious in welcoming me and many of my colleagues who arrived. And I'm delighted to have that memory present with me as we gather this moment, this hour, this day for a time of worship. Worship is, of course, that time that we claim for ourselves to be gathered in community to remember as consciously as we can the values out of which we mean to live, and the compassion we mean to embody, and the larger love we mean to honor through how we live our lives and connect with others. 18 years ago, the summer before I left Maine to begin my seminary experience at Meadville Lombard Theological School, I came across these words spoken by Rachel Naomi Remen. They're words of prayer taken from a Jewish prayer book called The Gates of Prayer. I offer them up this morning as words for our call to worship, in the hope that they might help each of us to remember to see and honor and be grounded by the miraculous that is unfolding around us, that which is awe-inspiring and soul-nourishing, evidence of life renewing and spending itself in the days that we're experiencing now. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. Lord, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Help us to see that wherever we gaze, the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out in holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Welcome, and come let us worship.
Good morning. The story I chose for today is called God's Paintbrush. I chose it because it talks about everyday miracles. Now, it's called God's Paintbrush, but if you are someone for whom the word God doesn't feel like the right fit, I invite you to substitute it for another word that does feel better. Personally, I think of God in this story as the interdependent web of existence of which we are all a part. This story is pretty long, so I edited it down a little bit. God's Paintbrush by Sandy Eisenberg Sasso, illustrated by Annette Compton. Sometimes I think the clouds are made of white balls of cotton yarn, God's way of painting pictures in the sky. And then a big wind comes and blows the picture away, like a giant eraser. A sunbeam peeked in my window today and painted a rainbow on my wall. I think the sunbeam is God's paintbrush, dipped in a watercolor sea, painting clouds and coloring our world. What color would you paint the world today? Sometimes I imagine that when it gets very dark at night, the flowers, trees, mountains, and oceans are afraid. I wonder if God made the stars for them to go to bed with and the moon to be their nightlight. When are you afraid? What makes you feel better? Sometimes, when the clouds look gray and dark, I think they are angry or sad, and the rain, I think, is God's tears. Sometimes the ocean makes giant waves with foam on top. I imagine that this pleases God, and God laughs, like when the fizz on my favorite ice cream soda tickles my nose, and I laugh. When the wind blows warm grass and makes flowers dance, it makes my hair brush against my face. I think that the wind is God's breath moving through the world, making it come alive. I think that God's breath moves through me too. I think everyone has a little bit of God's breath in them, and that makes us all special. Walking home this afternoon, I heard a wind whistle, a dog bark, a bird chirp, a baby cry. All these sounds, some soft, some loud, they are God's songs. If you sang a song to God, what would you sing? Sometimes, on a bright day, when I close my eyes real tight, I see all kinds of colors, green and purple, red and blue. I think these are just like God's colors. I know God's colors are in me too, and I can paint with God's paintbrush.
The lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with you, nor leaves your sight, and I am yours, I rest in you. Oh, wondrous love, rest in me too. Each secret thought is known to thee, my whole life's path, whate'er it be, and I am yours, I rest in you. Oh, wondrous love, rest in me too, rest in me too. The ends of earth stretch far and wide, through dark and sea and open sky, and I am yours, I rest in you. Oh, wondrous love, rest in me too, rest in me too. The lone wild bird in lofty flight is still with you, nor leaves your sight, and I am yours, I rest in you. Oh, wondrous love, rest in me too.
Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life, and her mother's, and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people, and all people are you. Remember you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is. That life is. Remember.
When I went to bed on Wednesday night this past week, I knew that I wanted to get up early on Thursday morning to see the sunrise. My partner wasn't that thrilled about my plan, but reluctantly agreed. When we stepped off the porch onto the driveway and headed down Elm Street in the village of Bucksport where we live, it was 5:03 a.m. when I looked at my watch, and there was already a little light outside. Bundled up in hats and a buff and winter coats that we haven't yet put away, in less than 5 minutes we crossed Main Street and we were walking on the brick path alongside the Penobscot River. Off to the east, over the water, the color of a small bank of low clouds, nestled in on the horizon, began to change as the sun began to rise. Within 10 minutes, the fullness of the sun was visible in the sky, and it occurred to me that every day that very same thing happens. Every day the sun rises, moving us first into astronomical dawn, which is the sun at 15 degrees below the horizon and the very first beginnings of brightening. Then there's nautical dawn, when you can make out the horizon. Then there's what's called civil twilight, the time when it's light enough to see things, though the sun still isn't up. And finally, that time when the day moves into sunrise, that ordinary but still extraordinary life-sustaining daily phenomena that occurs most days without my even noticing. And yet when I do notice, something in me shifts. Something opens up. Some part of me remembers again how precious and miraculous and fleeting this life is. I can't help but to think of the quote by Rachel Carson that I shared as a thought to ponder as we listened to the music for this morning's prelude. One way to open your eyes is to ask yourself, what if I knew I would never see it again? I'd be sad if I knew I'd never see another sunrise. It's tradition in our Ellsworth UU Church to insist that our youth groups sleep over at church at least once a year. They want to sleep over more often than once a year often. But it's tradition that at least one time when they do sleep over, they be made to get up very early in the morning and head to Acadia National Park. Now, we bring blankets and to-go cups, travel mugs of tea and coffee, and we stand on rocks at Compass Harbor in Bar Harbor or on top of Cadillac Mountain if the road is open, and we greet the day arriving that way. They hate getting up, these teenagers who I torment, and I hear about it when I'm after them, but something happens. Some knowing about the magnificence of life happens when we witness the sunrise, when we're there to see it happen together. I, for one, love knowing that our expression awe is rooted in the Greek word akos, which also gives us the word ache. Awe opens an ache in the heart, and in doing so, expands it. Kathleen McTeague is a Unitarian Universalist minister and someone whose writing and leadership in our denomination I have long admired. For 21 years, she served as senior minister at the Unitarian Society of New Haven in Connecticut. More recently, she's transitioned into leadership and ministry as the executive director of our UU Service Committee's College of Social Justice. In this role, McTeague helps plan and oversee projects and spiritual pilgrimages for UU youth and adults. In a meditation she wrote, McTeague recalls one particular day in her life some years back now, at a time when she and her husband were raising their 3 young children. On this day, she was hustling home to get dinner made and on the table and to get bath time and bed stories read and done. It all happened later than she'd hoped that day, and these necessary daily rituals took longer than she hoped they would. Finally, though, when everyone was tucked in, she put on her shoes and jacket and she headed outside to walk the dog, just the one last task on her to-do list before the evening was hers. Only when she was halfway down the driveway did she happen to glance up. And when she did, her jaw dropped. That's what she says. There before her, the whole spread of the Milky Way splintered out across the clear black sky, stars behind stars in the deep pool of space. Awestruck, she stood there silent for a time, intimately aware in that moment that she was, quote, awash in starlight that had been traveling toward her for millions of years. A minute or more so of amazement, and she knew what she had to do next. It was absolutely clear to her. No longer feeling frantic or hurried, she reappeared in the bedroom doorway of each of her still awake children, 3 daughters, and one by one in turn, she carried them in their pajamas outside into the crisp winter air. She wanted them to be bathed in that ancient light too. Maybe this is all we can bear of the cosmic perspective on time, McTeague muses. Maybe just this little glimpse of eternity that lets us see our small lives connected to everything else on so massive a scale. The immensity revealed in a clear night sky doesn't leave me feeling diminished or irrelevant, she writes. Instead, it reminds me that if we can be present exactly in the moment we're living, we can step outside of time altogether. After all, we live in that eternity. We just forget until something like starlight wakes us up to it again. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. Where, I wonder, did starlight last wake you up? What sky were you standing or sitting under, in your backyard, or at the beach, or on the deck, or on a walk to a river near your house? What vista were you looking toward? What familiar road or mountain trail or well-worn path through some woods were you walking when you last remembered your place, which is our place, on this living planet in this vast universe, and how good it is to be alive? I ask these questions as I'm asking them of myself because I know that when we are anxious or tired or scared or grieving, it is easy to forget, so easy to forget, and to lose sight of knowing how good and rich and beautiful and poignant and grounded that we are in the world when we're aware of it. How we're called to help each other remember to see this quality of awareness and appreciation inside of us, a reverence for the miraculous, the majesty of the earth, to do this in all of our days as they unfold, in the midst of whatever is tender or those trying realities that are changing how we live also. As I record this sermon, I understand that your beloved emeritus minister, the Reverend Brad Mitchell, is actively dying. I can imagine how sad you must be and feel, and I hope there is comfort and reassurance you can feel also in the strength of the love this community has for him, and the return of life in the flowers that's happening, the running water and longer days that we are experiencing. Of course, it's Maine and it's springtime right now, which means it's super chilly most mornings, and many days snow was falling from the sky here where we live in Bucksport this past Thursday. Many of us are working from home now most days, directed to be at home and to stay at home, to do our part to help flatten the curve of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're hearing that it's helping and making a difference, but that doesn't necessarily make it easier to be isolated or alone. Some of us too, of course, are among the generous and courageous ranks of those people whose work is deemed essential. You're people whose presence is required and needed, and so you're gone, sometimes many hours from your family and loved ones, gone to work, attending to others, and coming home at the end of long, demanding days, still wanting and needing to find ways to attend to your own heart's nourishment and renewal. How do we do that? How do we become better practiced at noticing and being nourished by the ordinary, extraordinary accounts of life's renewal? That's the central question of this service and this sermon. How do we become better practiced at bearing witness to the beauty that is around us, doing that in such a way that we're able to feel more grounded and present and full of compassion and equanimity, and able to share that presence in the world with people we love, with strangers we don't know who need us, with a world that is hurting and also beautiful? The Reverend Scott Taylor is director of the Soul Matters program, a Unitarian Universalist program, and he shares these insightful observations about the miraculous, the awe-inspiring truth about life renewing itself and our place within all of creation, the wonder that is at the heart of that. These are his words. The path of awe seems well worn. It's a journey intended to bring us down to size. Pictures of our galaxy with a note that there are 100 billion more just like it. Videos of deep sea creatures with bioluminescent bodies. Images of the northern lights that are utterly otherworldly. All of them remind us that the universe is more vast than we can imagine. All of them leave us with a sense of wonder that overwhelms. We are brought to the edge of what we can wrap our minds around. It's like staring into an incomprehensible abyss. One can't help but feel humbled and small. But, he goes on to say, but religion has never wanted us to stop there. Hold tight, it says. I know it's hard, but trust us. The path doesn't end with a deep darkness that doesn't care. Just stand at the abyss a little longer, lean in just a little bit more, and when you do so, suddenly an invitation emerges from the awful abyss. You look into the vast mystery, and surprisingly it stares back as if to say, welcome home. In this strange and taxing time that we're living, some of our spiritual work is to live each day with a sense of awe and reverence for the gift we know of being alive and a part of all of it, for the sacredness of the earth with which our lives are connected and through which nourishment for our soul is also possible. In this strange time of social distancing, it is our practice, it need be our spiritual practice to remember, as the poet suggests, to remember that you and I are all people and all people are you and me. Remember, you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember the sky that you were born under. Remember the moon. Remember the star's birth at dawn. Remember the earth whose skin you are. All the wisdom teachings of the world's many religions and spiritual traditions call us to live our lives with both awe and humility, with a deep respect and abiding reverence for life and each other, and for this planet and the vast and mysterious universe in which we live. Some of our most faithful work is to live our lives in ways that honor the truth of our relatedness and our interdependence within the web of all existence. Today, together, we remember to take in the ordinariness of our lives and to put ourselves in the way of beauty and magnificence. Today, together, we remember to get up early to watch the sunrise, to go out at night to gaze at stars, to breathe in the cold, and on the very same day to feel the warmth of the sun on our skin, to open our heart to the beautiful ache of the miraculous that's happening here and now all around us, to remember. Amen and blessed be.
Phoebe on a fence post, fly away, fly away. Phoebe on a fence post, fly away home. Green snake in the sweet grass, slide away, slide away. Green snake in the sweet grass, slide away home. 'Cause the sunset through the birches paints a picture on the wall, and the dandelions are closing, and the hermit thrush calls. So Phoebe on a fence post, fly away, fly away. Phoebe on a fence post, fly away home. Baby in the bathtub, splash away, splash away. Baby in the bathtub, splash the whole floor. And mama in the kitchen, sing away, sing away. Mama in the kitchen, won't you sing a little more? 'Cause there's moonlight on the window and the chicken's home to roost. Well, this train is bound for bedtime, so shake that red caboose. And baby in the bathtub, splash away. And mama in the kitchen, won't you sing a little more? Brown bat in the starlight, sweep away, swoop away. Brown bat in the starlight, dancing on a breeze. And there's peepers in the frog pond, and they peep away, squeak away. Peepers in the frog pond are singing through the trees. And there's a barred owl in an oak tree, like the ghost of Robert Frost. He's asking about the yellow wood, the two roads, and the cost. While the peepers in the frog pond peep away, squeak away. And a brown bat in the starlight is dancing on a breeze. Phoebe on a fence post, fly away, fly away. Phoebe on a fence post, fly away home.
For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the love which from our birth over and around us lies, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of ear and eye, for the heart and mind's delight, for the mystic harmony, linking sense to sound and sight, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the wonder of each hour, of the day and of the night, hill and vale and tree and flower, sun and moon and stars of light, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. For the joy of human care, sister, brother, parent, child, for the kinship we all share, for all gentle thoughts and mild, source of all to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise.
I love that hymn, and I love the lyrics. For the beauty of the earth, for the splendor of the skies, for the joy which from our birth over and around us lies. Source of all, to thee we raise this our hymn of grateful praise. As this worship service now comes to a close, I'm struck by something I'm remembering that Dr. Shaw said earlier this week. Dr. Shaw, the director of the Maine CDC, his words were spoken in one of the reports that I watched, and I remember it was something like, Whenever public health officials look for something, the principle is to expect that they will find it. What if we all agreed to apply that same principle to how we move and live and engage with each other in the world around us? What if we started this week, this day, this hour looking for the miraculous that is unfolding, bearing witness to the natural beauty of this place where we live, so many of us choose to live? What if we made a point to begin or end our days that way and to tell each other what we saw, how it made us feel, why it matters? It's Mary Oliver who once said that attention is the beginning of devotion. In all that we do and the many ways that we reach out and help and companion one another while still being safe and smart, may courage and kindness and humility be at work in us. May we know and remember and honor the wisdom of the words of the Jewish prayer with which we began our service. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. Lord, love, life, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Help us to see that wherever we gaze, the bush burns unconsumed, and we, clay touched by God, will reach out in holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Go in peace, go in love, go in thanks. Amen.